Hey y'all, it's Nancy the Handy Scandy. Welcome back for another crafty venture. Hey guys, this was meant to be a brief explanation of how I coordinate my coloring of different images to the pattern paper or gel plate print or whatever I'm using. However, explaining your thought process word for word is long. So even though this is a brief dive, it is kind of long, so just be prepared for that. But in the meantime, here we go. Hey y'all, so I've had several comments and questions about how I mix and match pattern papers and textures and things like that. So I thought I would do a little bit of a dive into it. I wanted to make a couple of the Hip to Be Square, the 3x3 Valentine's cards, and I thought I would talk about that in terms of the paper and then the coloring of the whatever image it is you're going to use. For me today, it's going to be a couple of snowmen. I have this stamp set from Whimsy. It is called Birthday Cool, but this little guy with his little heart garland I thought was perfect, so I stamped him out twice, and that is my plan, to make 2 cards. And what I'm deciding on is if I want to use this 6x6 pattern paper from it's old Stampin' Up, or older anyway, but it's double-sided, which is really fun when you're doing the Hip to Be Square cards. And yeah, so I might do one with the pattern paper and then one with one of my poles. So with the Hip to Be Square, they're 3x3, which means you need 6x3 because you score the 6 in half and then it folds over to be 3. So it's 3 inches wide, 3 inches tall, but it has to be 6 inches tall once it's open. So these are the 3 gel plate prints that I'm considering. And then I already showed you the gel plate prints. So I think, because when the inside opens, you know, you want to see whatever whole image is there. So I think I don't want this on the outside, because whatever's on the outside, the front is going to be folded in half. Does that make sense? So I think these images, whichever one I decide to use, will be the inside, and then these beautiful silver prints will be the outside. And so with that being said, when I color up my guy, singular, I'm just going to do one. I've got to hold myself to that because there's too much else to do. But when I do that, I'm going to color to coordinate with what's on the inside, so that'll be a little bit of foreshadowing. Even though he's very much a comic, you know, kind of snowman, and these are actual photographs made into the pattern paper, that's okay. I don't worry about that. I just want my colors to coordinate. So let's see which I like. I don't like that so much for a card front. I love that purple on the inside. Love that purple on the inside with the greens and a little bit of blues and the whites. Love that. But I'm gonna rule this one out because I don't really like this as a front, and the silver and white will be the front. So now it's down to these two. Which do I prefer to be the front? Because this will be the inside. So now looking at both, I love these snowflakes, but I don't know if I want that to be my inside. I love it. I love the little pine cone in there, and I could put like a little white square to be where you do your writing. Same on this one, but I think I'm leaning towards that. I like that contrast, that deep blue, oddly enough. And then this will be the front. So with that decision made, and that is how I make my decisions. It just depends on what my focus is going to be. Now, if I was more worried about image than I was about the color scheme and lining things up properly and stuff like that, then I may have made a different decision. I probably would have had different options. I'm going to score both of these at 3. And if you saw, I cut this in half at 3 inches because it's 6x6. So I cut it in half vertically at 3 inches. And then I'm going to score it at 3, and that is where I will fold it. So you see how the outside becomes, or the back side becomes the outside of the card, and then when you open it up, I've got it upside down, of course. Then when you open it up, that's your beautiful inside. So I love that idea. I'm going to go ahead and score this one as well. So there is that one. I'm going to set this one aside because we're not focusing on it. And now that one's ready, but let's look at these. Let's go ahead and narrow down our choices. So I love this idea for Valentine's Day. And like, this is just shades of blue and white. This is just shades of pink and white. So this could be along those same lines, kind of a monochromatic. You know what? Let's just do that. Let's just do that. I just talked myself into it. So that's what we're going to focus on in terms of the coloring and matching the papers and the coloring of your images. So first thing I want to do is trim this down because I haven't done that yet. I don't know that I want to cut off that grungy edge. I love that grungy edge. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to cut this at 3 inches. Which end do I want to use? I want to use this end. So I want those grungy edges. So I'm going to cut it at 3. And then this way I'm going to cut it at 6. However, this doesn't, let me trim the top and the bottom off. This particular guillotine trimmer only goes to 4.5 on the grid. This is actually 5.5 here, but I don't know how to get to 6. So what I'm going to do is take a pencil and mark 6 inches on my glass mat. So here we go. We're going to go 6 inches, and that's where I'll cut it. I'll cut it at 6. So here you can see I made the little notch mark, and then this part will be my card. Now, do I want see, my brain is already going on to the next step. So do I want this to be the outside and just the white on the inside? I think that's exactly what I want. I'm going to go ahead and cut 2 of these because I just think that'll be fun. And when I am done, I'll come back and make another one of these and another one of the blue ones. So there's that, and this is what I have left. Let me see how much that is. That's about 4 3/4. So I could still easily make at least one more out of that. So I want to be sure that this netting is in there. I think that's really cool, but I also, man, that's hard to decide. I really want the netting, but I think that I want the sunflower / snowflake more. So here we go. We're going to trim that down. And I still have those bits that I want, right? I still have them. So I'm going to toss these, but I'm going to just set these aside because those will get used on something else. All right, now we're going to score. At 3. And then they fold back this way. There's your 3 by 3 card. And I love this grungy bit. So this is the one that we're going to use for today because I want those grungy edges. And that gives us a little bit more color to play with too. And then you open it up. There we go. Okay, so let's pull over the These are the colors that we're playing with, right? These are my two guys. Let's pull over. We need the blues. I need the water. We need the reds and pinks. But also there's purples in that mix as well. So we've got all of those, and I need a little bit of gray because they're snowmen. So I've just brought all three of my little bins, which might darken my desk area a little bit, but I encourage you to go ahead and put this in double time and just watch it really fast. I doubt that I'll do a lot of talking. Just what I'm going to do is pull colors from my Olo markers, and I'll probably kind of swatch them off on the corner and then match them up just to make sure that I'm in the colorway, the right colorway. So first thing I'm going to do is color all of the hearts. In fact, let me cut these apart so I don't have to keep flipping it over. So I like the idea of kind of an orangey, corally heart for the blue. So these are the colors that I'm going. And if you have a color wheel, that would be a wonderful tool to use anytime you're doing coloring and you struggle with colors. Great tool to use. So first, keep it simple. You do not have to use a 3-color blend. Do what you want, use what you have. There are no coloring police. And in terms of highlighting, if you even think about it, if I think about it, I might consider a light source. In this case, I was thinking the light would come in from the left on the left, come in from the right on the right, and in the middle there would be highlights on both sides. And I love the way that corally red pops on that blue. Now you could have gotten a nice pop with orange or real red or pink. Several different colors would have really worked. And again, this is where a color wheel would have come in really handy. So let's start looking over at the other one. So we know that we are going with pinks in terms of the monochromatic colors, but we also want to pull in those purples that are in that grungy bit. So I'm really kind of swatching out a lot of different tones there. And of course that one is too gray or too brown and it just doesn't work. So here I've chosen a 2-color blend. I'm just going back and forth and blending it out. And again, if I want highlights in the end, I will come back and use a white gel pen. So now I'm deciding if I want blue jays or cardinals. I decide cardinal, so I pull up a cartoon cardinal so I know the color scheme, and then I'm going to swatch out my colors because in real life the mask on a cardinal is black. However, with these markers, they're already so dark. If I do black, I'm going to lose everything. Now, I'm not really pleased with the way this one turns out in the beginning. Then I pull out a fine liner to see if it will work better. And we'll just see how they look in the end. You guys tell me what you think. Something to consider when you're using dark, bold colors, or any color for that matter, is that the color actually continues to spread or bleed once you put it to your paper, especially if the paper is wet. So think about like watercolor, right? If you do wet on wet, if your paper is wet and you dip your pigment into that wetness on your paper, it blooms, it blossoms, it spreads, which can be a really cool effect if that's what you're looking for. But typically when we're coloring, we want our coloring to stay in the lines. So just keep that in mind, that for me, I tend to go just shy of the black line on my image so that gives a little bit of space for the red to bloom, especially if your paper is already wet. Because if you have used like a 0 marker to try to push something back, you want to let that dry, or your dark bold color, in this case red, is going to bleed into that 0 marker space. Does that make sense? Let me know downstairs if it does not. So what I've learned from watching other people, and I found that it really works for me when I'm creating my color blends. For instance, on the hearts, I chose red 0.2, 0.3, and 0.4. So in that case, I matched the very first digit, and then after that, I went in consecutive numbers. So that really works for me. Another way is to match the last digit. So I'm going to put up a picture on the screen and you can see where I've matched the last digit, and it's a very unusual color combo, and you want to take advantage of that wet paper situation that I mentioned earlier, because that's what's going to get those kind of disconnected colors to blend. So I know the video itself is going really fast and it's out of sync with what I'm saying, but there's so many important things that I want to make sure that I tell you. I'm just trying to fit them in where I can, and again, it's not necessarily consecutive, if you will, with the video. So I hope this makes sense, but let's go ahead and jump back into it, because another thing that I find important, especially with Olos, because that is what I use, the caps are very consistent with the actual color. You saw when I had that brown that I used for the snowman arms, you see I swatched it out there and I showed the cap. They are very, very consistent. And when it comes to browns, in Olos, the browns are O's and ORs, oranges and orange reds. You just got to watch your colors or your numbers. And that really just comes with time and practice and experience. I know the Copics are E's for browns, and I think it stands for earth tones. So regardless of what type of marker you have, whether it's markers or some other kind of medium, you just have to learn it. You have to play with it. You have to be willing to make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. And then how can you use those mistakes, quote unquote, to play into potentially a different technique? Now, in terms of doing the shadowing on the snowman bodies, keep in mind that white isn't white, right? In real life, white has all kinds of different tones and tints and all of those things, because there's grays and there's browns and there's yellows and there's greens and there's all the different colors that create the shadows. So with that said, I swatched out several different, my warm grays, my cool grays, some other tones that were very, very soft, and any of them could work. I chose colors that coordinate with the papers that we're using and with kind of the plan that we're doing here with the monochromatic color scheme. On this guy, I used warm gray 0, and on the other guy, I'm using the cool gray 0. Now here you saw that I pulled out several different pinks and even some shades of purple, but they all coordinate with that gel plate print that we're using for the card base. So the way that I did the scarves is I put the darker color where the folds of the fabric are, but I don't like the way that turned out. So on the hat, I just came in from the sides with that flicking motion. Decided to go back and do the same on the scarf just to kind of correct that. And you don't always have to have shadows where the folds are. Again, this isn't real life and there are no police, so you do whatever works for you. That flicking motion tends to work for me. And I figured on the hat, the sun or whatever light source is going to be shining, you know, right there in the front, and then the shadows would be on the side. So I really wanted just some more texture, because we're talking about texture as well. There's loads of texture in both of the gel plate print and the pattern paper, but I wanted some implied texture on the hat. Or if implied doesn't make sense, I often use the word visual, and I say visual texture instead of implied, because there's not physical texture, but it looks like you can reach out and touch it and feel the difference. Again, please let me know in the comments if any of this doesn't make sense, or if you have comments or other suggestions. I want to hear them all. So for whatever reason, I love circles, so I took the lightest purple from the purple combo that I used on the garlands, and I made random circles all over the hat and the scarves. And then you can see I swatched out my gel pens, and I took the 0.5 and I went around each of those purple circles with the gel pen. And then I went back into each circle and I dabbed that purple one more time just to make it a little bit more intense. And you can see that I'm adding just a little bit of highlight to the bird and to the heart garland with that 0.5 gel pen as well. And then I feel like that looks really cute. And then I go ahead and color in the little gloves using the purples again. And I just use a dabbing motion to add that darkness and then to blend that back out. But I think it turned out super cute. All right, time to fussy cut. So what kind of information can I impart to you on fussy cutting that you don't already know? I can only tell you my process. I tend to keep a little white edge around my fussy cut images, only because it's a little bit easier for me to do that type of cutting. Not everybody likes that white edge. So you could go all the way up to the black edge. However, I would encourage you, if you do that, make sure when you're done, go over your entire image on the side and use a black marker, and that will fill in any gaps or any inconsistencies in that fussy cutting, because we're human. We're going to make errors. There's going to be inconsistencies. So that black marker along the edge helps to camouflage that quite a bit. So another thing to think about in terms of your image, and if you don't want to fussy cut all of those, like, I don't know, the loosey-goosey pieces, the tendrils, the etc., whatever might be sticking off of your main image, you can stamp it down onto your card base. Just stamp it in black, right? And then stamp it again, and the second one that you stamp off onto a separate piece of paper will be the image that you fussy cut. So you color it up, you fussy cut, but you cut off all of those pieces that you don't want to have to fussy cut around. And then when you put your second image on top of your first image, then you put it right over it, and all those pieces that you cut off that you didn't want to fussy cut are already stamped onto your card base, and then you can just go in and color them if they need to be colored. So I thought this would be a really good place for a bit of an interlude. Feel free to hit pause, come back when you're ready, or go to the bathroom, get yourself a snack, whatever it is you need to do. But just kind of a word before we step into part 2. I am going to be keeping the coloring of the blue snowman in real time, so I just want you to know that. If you want to speed it up or skip it altogether, whatever you want to do obviously is totally up to you. I just wanted y'all to know what we were doing, and so we're going to go ahead and jump on back in. So I am not as proficient with blues as I am with pinks and reds. Let's look at the blues. I need a deep, ooh, this one looks like it might be good. So we're in the 4.7. Here's another 07. That looks like it's going to be too bright. So there's a 4.6. Yep, we're on the right track here. And then there's a 4.3. That might be too bright. We may only use the 2. I don't want the blue violets, I just want the blues. And we're in the 4 family. So 4.3, 4.2. Okay, those are the only options. So let's kind of swatch them out, see if we like them. I'm going to go ahead and use this one. So this is the 4.3. Does that work at all? It's not so bad with the flowers. It's kind of a couple shades darker on the flowers. So this is the 4.7. Oh gosh, it's a chisel tip. How did I get a chisel tip? Wow. I have another bullet nib somewhere. I need to change it out. This is the 4.6. So they all definitely work. All right, let's do it. So we're going to use the 4.3 in the same way we used the, I can't remember which one we used there. Let me make sure I've got the right one. I do. I'm going to color the gloves first. That's a small enough space that if this blue just doesn't work, then I won't use it on the darker spaces. So that is the 4.3. Let's go 4.6. And then the 4.7. I have to be very careful with this chisel tip. I'm using it more in a dabbing motion. And then I'm going to dab with the 4.6 as well. And then I'm going to come in and use the 4.3. 4.3 is a pretty big jump to the 4.6, but those are the only options Olo has right now. Unless they've come out with something new and I don't know it. Now let's look. Those seem to work okay. And again, they're going to be on the outside. So they don't necessarily need to match perfectly. It's just going to be kind of foreshadowing as to what you're going to see on the inside. So, okay. So let's go ahead and do the scarf and then the hat. I might go back in and do a little bit of darker shadowing on his body, because it really has blended out quite a bit. And since we already know that I had trouble trying to just use the folds as where I put my darker colors, I'm not going to do that on this one. I already know it didn't work. So on this one, I'm just going to do the flicking in just a little ways. And then I'm going to come in with the darkest black right on the edge. And especially since this is the chisel tip, I've got to be super careful and not make really bold marks. And then I come back in with the mid-range again. Flick, 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 flick. And then I'll come in with my lighter color and flick. And I'm going to let that dry before I color in that middle because I really laid down a lot of ink. So I'm going to start on the hat, just going along the edge and then flicking. Not quite to the middle, but pretty close. And then from this side, I'm going to go, because there's more of the hat showing, so I'm not going to go as far in as I did on the other side. Does that make sense? See how I have it in a curve? Because the hat is curved, right? His head is in it, and he's tipping his head to the side. So here we go. This is the mid-range. So again, just going up the side, doing that flicking motion a little bit. This side too, I'm going to go along the brim just a little and then kind of flicking. This time I'm flicking more up because I don't want to go out too far in the hat. And this is more difficult because, again, it's that silly chisel nib, which I don't even know what I was thinking when I ordered that. I don't use my blues very often. I'm just not a blue girl, but I'm going to call that good, and then I'm going to bring in my mid-tone again. And the reason I turned it upside down was because I just felt like I needed more control and kind of a better vantage point on the coloring I was doing. So there's that, and then I'm going to come in with my lightest color again. Blend it out and go just a little bit further into the highlight, but still not color it all the way in. And now I'm going to color the scarf in the rest of the way, but really lightly across that center white. Oh, it really didn't make much of a difference. Maybe it wasn't dry enough. So I'm going to wait a little bit longer on that one. And I used a cool gray 0. I'm going to come in with a cool gray 1 and see if that makes a difference, because he doesn't look like he has any kind of shadowing on him at all, nor does the ground. So that's a little bit better. And again, remembering to go on the opposite side of your highlight. And so I had the highlight on the right side up to the middle, and then there's a little bit of highlight on both sides in the middle one, and then the highlights on the left, on the left-hand side. And then I'm going to come in again around his face, his hat, his scarf. And do a little bit on the buttons too. And then I'm going to go back in with the cool gray 0 and blend it out a little, because I don't want it to be like an obvious highlight. And it's okay if you go over the cheeks and blend them out a little bit. Same with all of your shadows on your little guys and on your snow. Just the dabbing there on the snow. And now that the, what are these called? The hearts. Now that they're dry, I'm going to come in with my Gelli pen and again do that highlight that I missed while I was coloring. And it just adds a fun little element to it. It's not like I'm worried about the light source again. I'm just adding that extra, just a little extra element. I'm going to do a little bit on the gloves. Going to do a little bit down the hat. It just little by little breaks up that vast color, if that makes sense. Okay, cute. Let me fussy cut him out. So here is this guy. That is stinking cute. Stinking cute. And then you open it up and you see that beautiful. Okay, those all work, so I can put all of this mess away. I'm gonna pause you and come back when I have whatever shape I'm gonna use, whether it's a heart or something else. I'll be back. Okay, so this is where we're at on our little Hip to Be Square 3x3 snowman Valentine's cards, and we're using the hashtag for the love of snowman, right? We can also use hashtag Hip to Be Square because we're making little square cards. But we did the coloring, we coordinated the colors of markers with the papers that we're using. On this one, the colors are on the inside. And are they exact? No. But do they work? Yeah. They do. I love that we use the purple to pull out this little hint over here. It just makes it make sense. I love that. And then this, like we said, is going to be a foreshadowing of what's to come on the inside. So now what we need to do is figure out if we want a shape behind them, and if so, what do we want and how much of it do we want and in what type of medium. So lots of decisions there. So this, I'm just going to let those fall. This is my heart dies from Creek Bank Creations, one of my very first sets ever. This one was already cut out. It's not the smallest, but it's third to the smallest, because there's the actual smallest, second, and then this is the third. This one is just too big. But this was already die cut, so I could put it behind him and try or sort of audition him, right? That seems to work. Also gives him a landing point, gives him some separation from the background, and on the inside we could use the same die and die cut a light piece of pink to bring that pink to the inside, and then that could be where you write your note. Now again, we can't really use the larger die because it's just too big. So if we tried to do that to give as much space as we could onto the place to write, we won't really lose too much of the edges if I cut it right, but we will use the point on the bottom. So it's a contender, right? It's not the end of the world. I definitely don't want this on the outside because then we lose all of the pattern paper. And same with this on the inside. I don't want to lose all of that because wherever that heart is going to be covered up. I prefer the idea of this heart on the inside over here, but that doesn't give you a whole lot of room to write. So these are definitely a contender. I'm going to set them over here because I really like that idea. And this one is one of the Prim heart sets that I have. Let's see how this would work. I don't have any already cut out. Now this is the Prim or the eyelet Prim, whatever. It has the eyelet, which I think might be too I'll say flouncy for lack of a better word, but I don't know the word I'm looking for. But anyway, now on this one, because it's long and skinny, I like the idea of offsetting it from the snowman. So that's really cute. And again, we could do it in white and run it through an embossing folder and have some texture. Maybe like a Swiss dot, because we have the dots going on the hat and scarf. I think I'm liking that idea. And then on the inside of this one, it doesn't provide a whole lot of writing space, but we don't have to use the same shape on the inside and the outside. But I do like, again, the same idea over here is offsetting, and we could cut it out in like a very pale blue. I have some blue vellum. I need to look and see if it's blue or if it's teal blue. If it's teal, it doesn't work, but I'll look and see. Even if it's just kind of frosty, because I don't want to cover up those beautiful silver stripes, but I don't know, we'll see. So again, that's a contender. That one is my favorite, to be fair. Oh, you need to go back in there. Also, we could do snowflakes. Now I pulled out this set. These are Stampin' Up, but they're just, the biggest one is too big, and then this one I thought might be a really good option, and it's too insignificant. I mean, we could do the offset thing again, but I don't really like that idea for this one. I'm not sure why, but there's just something about it I don't like. Now these are from, well, it says Stampin' Up. These are Spellbinders. I'm wondering if this might be a better option. That's going to cover up a lot. Yeah, too much. I have one more option. I'm going to set this aside over here because I don't like those. But let me look at this guy. Again, it covers up a lot, but how much of that actually gets cut out and how much of it is snowflake? I think only where these extra pieces are. So these little hearts, the little hearts, and then these little that look like game controllers, and then the little ovals. I think the rest of it is white. So it's going to be covering up quite a bit. So again, I love the snowflake. Not going to use it in this setting. What about a scenery die? It's a thought. I could kind of put the trees on a hill, on a slant, so it's going to cover up a lot, and it's also going to cover down here, but that's an idea. That's definitely an idea. I'm not sure that that's a contender, though. It's an idea for sure. And I thought it might be a better idea than this one because, well, this, we definitely wouldn't use these large mountains, but this, I like the idea of the house being in the background, and you don't have to cover too much and put him over here, but still you'll be losing all of this. That's about 1/3 of that background. So again, I don't want to use that one either. And these are trees. I have a couple different dies stamped, or tree dies, but I don't think any of them will work, to be honest. No, they're just, no. And this is why I audition everything, y'all. And I'm sure you guys know that what you think will work sometimes just doesn't. And sometimes you're surprised by what you don't think will work, and it absolutely does. So in this one, this is my De Lafayette set from, I can't remember who it's by, but I think it's Mama Elephant, but it's no longer in stock. But I could just use like 2/3 of it, or even one, even just half of it, and kind of offset it too. Maybe a little bit more so it's higher than him. You're losing a lot of the background though, but it sure is pretty. I love that shape. And that would give you quite a bit of writing space on the inside. You could even turn it. What if we did that here? What if we did it like that? That's kind of cute. That's a contender, I think. You know what? No, I'm not going to put that in the contender because I have these other label frames that are smaller or have smaller options. So we could do a bigger option for the inside and a smaller option for the outside. So I really like this shape. So let me try that largest option for the inside. Again, if I do too large, see, that's very similar to the other one. If I do too large, I cover up a lot of that background. I might just have to reserve myself to that fact. And in this one, it could be a light shade of pink, like I mentioned. I think that's a good option. And then on the front, we could use like maybe this size, turn it this way, and he can just stand right there on it. That's not bad. And there's silver stripe above him and silver stripe below him. We get to see that fancy frame. And if we want to put a sentiment there, we can. Okay, I'm not hating that. Gosh, I almost want to make it go like this so I don't lose that purple. What if we did that? Would that be okay to turn it on its side? I think it would. Yeah, I don't want to lose that. Okay, so I think this side wins. We go sideways. I think that combo wins. Okay, so they are the Pink Fresh Essentials Fancy Label Frames, and I think they are still available. So that one wins. I'm going to put these away. I thought those were good options, and they still are, but I am going to go with this one. And also, just as a reminder, I also have this envelope die from my creative time that makes some really pretty envelopes. And again, it has this fun kind of fancy. Oh, look how good it mimics that. Yeah, that mimics that pretty good. So I'm going to set that aside. For right now, I'm going to pull out my vellums and see if I have one that works, or if I'm going to use just a white cardstock. I may just do that. And then this one I want white. I think the fronts, yeah, I've made up my mind. The fronts are just going to get each a panel of white. And then on the inside of this, it's going to get white as well. And on the inside of this, it's going to get a really light pink, if I can find one. So I'll be back. All right, here I have all of my pieces. So we're going to turn this one this way and put her there. That is super cute. Now I'm going to run it through an embossing folder still. And I think I don't think I want to do stripes on this guy, but I don't know if I have mini hearts or not. But I think that might be what I do. And then on the inside, I think I'm just going to, you know, the fact that you can still see the background, I love. And this one really doesn't need a panel, but because it's a gel plate print, it's not incredibly thick. So I think that'll work fine. Question is, do we want to put anything on the inside? Do we want to use one of the stencils and just gently stencil a little bit in there? I don't think I do, to be honest. I just don't think I do. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do the insides. I'm going to go ahead and put those down. Ooh. Okay, so now let me find an embossing folder that I like. I like the idea of the sweater. That cable knit is so cool. So cool. So is my process making sense to you guys? I think that way, and it forces me to put it up a little bit higher so I have all the purple down here. And again, there's no right or wrong, right? It's just personal preference, what looks good to your eye. So I want to do this again, maybe not so in depth, and just talk about different types of papers and why I would choose what I chose and where I get my inspiration from. And see, talking about texture, this has all the texture, right? It has all that visual texture, but this has physical texture now, right? I think I'm going to lift them both up. I just want a little bit more separation. I'm going to put him just off of center. Okay. All right, so I'm down to some very thin double-sided foam tape, but that is what I'm using to lift both of them up from the card bases just a little bit. These are occasions. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. Yours always, true love. XOXO, me and you, stuck like glue. That's fun. You're my one and only, happily ever after. Everything begins and ends with you. I'm loving you always and forever. I love you. I love you. Okay. I like the you and me, baby. We're stuck like glue. Now let me get a fine point pen. 0.03 I think should be pretty small. Yep. So I'm just gonna go. I know not everybody likes this look. That's okay, you don't have to, because we've been talking about no police all day, right? You do what you like. You do what makes your heart happy. You finish off your project in a way that you like. Me and you, stuck like glue. True love. This is several years old. I don't know if this one's still available anywhere or not. You can always search it. Small talk occasions. But I think I do want to do some silver splatter. And I think I like the idea of the platinum because it'll give the shine, and with the play of light in one direction, it'll look silver, but it's white. So we will do that. We'll do the platinum here. I like that idea. My sister used to get those lifestyle boxes. I can't even remember what they were called. It was something different every month. And one month there was 2 of these flower towels. What are they called? I don't even know. While this settles in, I'm going to add this. This is what I'm going to put on the pom-pom. It's this Stamperia Contour White. It's by Vicky Papiano. That wasn't even a Greek accent. I don't even know what that was. It just makes some nice, fun, kind of a glossy texture. And it definitely dries a little bit flatter than what you put it down. And I am just covering up everything about that pom-pom. I think it's going to be super cute. So soft. Okay. So I started to say I don't really care if their faces get covered, but I don't want their faces to be covered. So let me put just a little bit of scrap paper over their faces. I'll cover the little guys too. Just their faces. Ooh. That's too big. So it's really going to be more shine than color. I love that. Woo! Splatter in the wrong way. We're going to put some splatter on the inside as well. We're going to just leave that alone to dry. Those took way longer than needed, but if I were just making them, they would not have. Fun, fun, fun. All right, so here's some still shots of both of them finished up. I did go ahead and make envelopes with the die from my creative time, and you can see that I use some excess paper and pattern paper and gel plate print on the insides of the envelopes just to make them coordinate better. And I'm not sure why the inside panels are looking cream colored. They are not. They're the exact same as the ones on the front, and there they look white. So it's a weird thing. But anyway, please let me know your thoughts. I know this has been incredibly long. Yeah, I don't know if I explain myself very well, if I say it in a way that makes sense, if I complete my thoughts even. I don't know. Just let me know again what you think downstairs, and in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and let you go. I'm a tired girl. This has been Nancy, the Handy Scandy, and I'll be back soon. And until then, mwah, I'm out.